Not My Family is a highly fictionalized, loosely autobiographical narrative that describes generational bad will, poor choices, financial malfeasance, and even murder. The generational craziness is propagated like a tidal wave, threatening to drown everything in the deluge. Secrets are buried deep in lies, pacts sealed in blood, the truth concealed unto death, just to exert some control. Personally, I hate rubberneckers. It's kind of like, or this book is kind of like rubbernecking. The 30-mile pileup or 30-car pileup on I-75. You want to look away, but you're drawn to the carnage. Join me as the protagonist progresses along self-discovery, and she recreates her identity, and she discovers how to go home again. Not My Family can be purchased at FeliciaBaxter.com or directly from the author. Just navigate to Facebook, look up Dale's Angels Inc., and click Buy Now for your autographed copy. Now, let's return to the podcast. Hi everyone, this is TNFro's Medical Minute. I am your host, again, Felicia Baxter. Why this podcast? Why this segment? I originally had this as a part of my TNFro is reading book podcast, but I found that this segment made it run too long. Anything over an hour when you're just talking about books and technology and medicine, and anything technical probably borderlines on cruel and unusual punishment. So I decided to just take out this segment and create a completely separate segment on its own. And I will also wanted to just kind of keep in touch with those things that I find interesting. The intertwining of medicine and technology is just, I find fascinating to me. So some of the stuff that I read is kind of neat and dorky, in my opinion. This episode will revamp what I spoke about last week, though, as far as personal care items, as well as the update, if any, on Legionnaire's disease. But don't expect me to. The other thing I wanted you guys to understand, that don't expect me to hold to any type of concrete script, because since I don't have a sponsor, this is self-produced. I can pretty much do what I want to. But you will always be, or you can always be assured that whatever I speak about will be research, and I will be speaking on sound medical evidence. The focus of today's segment will also be on expanded research as far as precision medicine and the applicability, as well as the new Chlamydia vaccine is getting ready to drop. And also the contaminated water crisis in Jersey, which has been 2 years in the making. I will discuss that because that's been big in the news for the last couple of weeks. And I will also talk about another bonus section, which is How Was That, which will be just a little bit of a soundbite on what I'll be discussing either next week in the coming weeks. And I hope you will just stay with me as I unpack all the cool, dorky, and applicable stuff in medical news in today's episode of TNFro's Medical Minute. And I'll be right back. welcome back to the segment. An update on the Legionella outbreak in Atlanta that temporarily closed the Sheraton Atlanta. Um, it evidently opened back up last week, I believe 13th or 14th. There were 66 potential cases, one death. Uh, Legionella caused by a bacteria that we know what it is, we know how to prevent it, we know how to treat it, but in susceptible individuals, it can be deadly. Primarily, it causes a severe form of pneumonia, but it is completely treatable, as I told you guys last week. But it still has a 1 in 10 chance of causing significant morbidity and even death in individuals that contract it. So they seem to have linked it to some type of um, contaminated filtration system in the hotel, and they were safely able to open back up. Um, and that goes into the lead in. Now that we're talking about contaminated water, I'm going to have to fuss for a few minutes. This part of the show is two things that I'm going to talk about. What's going on in medical news. And we're talking about contamination. Um, Back in towards the beginning of the summer, there was an EPA report that stated that the filters that the officials had started giving out to the residents in Newark, New Jersey, were not uh, completely filtering or weren't even appropriately filtering out the lead that was contaminating the water. How does lead get into the system or water system? If you have an industrial pass and the industry contaminated the system willy-nilly, you never made them clean up anything, that's how you can contaminate your water table. If you have an aging water and sewage system and you have lead pipes going into these aging houses, that can also lead you to lead. That could have lead contaminating your water system. The other thing, too, is you have to understand that 15 parts per billion lead presence in your water was set by the EPA, and we now know that no level of lead is tolerable because the effects are cumulative. Growing fetuses and young minds are highly susceptible to any forms of lead poisoning. And what blows my mind is Newark officials knew about this since 2016 or 2017. There was a court case back even in 2018, December 2018, where the judge struck down and made it not possible for the cities to hand out faulty filters. And we'll get to that secondarily. But she struck down the cities handing out $10 pure water filters to the citizens of that era because she said they used old data. There was no contamination supposedly found, and they could not prove that the immediate that the people were in danger, and there were no immediate effects from lead being in the system. Several things are wrong with that. What we know about lead poisoning has been true, and there's nothing been changed. We know that no level of lead is safe for ingestion in a growing mind or in a fetus. So that trying to prove without a shadow of a doubt that mental instabilities that are totally preventable, that you don't need to worry about that in the immediate future is bogus. And then you want to tell me that you don't want the city that you pay taxes and they are not responsible for doing all they can to make sure that you have clean drinking water, that they have not proven that without a shadow of a doubt. I found that to be reprehensible. And this jockeying was going on in 2018. What even is more egregious, that they didn't want to pop for the $10 water pitchers, but everybody knows, and Pure will tell you this, they are not the proper system to remove lead. If you're going to remediate lead, you got to take out those old pipes and change it to PVC. Or if you can't do that, you need to pop for a multi-tiered under the sink water filtration system and have the same thing on the shower. That is how you truly decontaminate and you remove almost 100% of the lead from a system, or heavy metals from a system. And you telling me you distributed a whole bunch of Pure water pitchers and you thought that was going to actually be okay for your entire population. This reeks of just stupidity. And they're just like what went on in Michigan. These people are going to see the long-term effects of letting this go, because we're talking about several people that have been affected by this water plant that has been spewing out and not properly treating this water, and people that cannot help that they're until they get all the lead pipes and do the remediation at the homes. This is going to be an ongoing system. And I can just smell class action suit, because they knew about it. They had all this political and legal jockeying, and the only people that are suffering are several unborn fetuses and children that are going to see the long-term and probably lifelong effects of lead poisoning. You need to be ashamed of yourself, Newark. And that judge that wouldn't revoked the passing out ineffective filters, shame on you. But the flip side, the illness was on them to actually probably start and get some type of grant earlier on, especially before the current administration hit, to remediate this problem. I don't think we've heard the last of this, but I'll keep you guys posted. And why do I have artist rendition of chlamydia infecting a cell? Because I'm the same weirdo that actually has blown up pictures of flesh-eating E. coli and RSV on my walls, because I think it's cool. The new chlamydia vaccine that has dropped in several studies have shown multiple efficacy. Why am I so excited about it? Because I'm a big geeky nerd. It is genetics at its finest. They have actually made a recombinant. We have the technology to create these vaccines. Basically, we insert genes into a different organism. We induce the organism to make the vaccine itself. It's called recombinant technology. And why was I so focused on it? Because I think it's absolutely brilliant. Chlamydia is the most common sexually transmitted disease worldwide. It causes, and for about 100 years, we've attempted and failed to make a cure or effect a cure or a protection against this particular sexually transmitted disease. Why is it so important? It can cause severe, besides the annoying cervical and urethral discharge, the clap, the drip, that kind of nonsense. But it can cause a severe form of prostatitis in susceptible men, and it's also associated with infertility in both men and women through the chronic inflammatory state for that, the urethritis or the prostatitis that it causes in men, and the pelvic inflammatory disease, if left untreated, can cause severe and irreversible infertility in women. It's not only associated with significant morbidity, there's no mortality can be truly associated with it, except in newborns, that susceptible population of people that can get hit by a very bad conjunctivitis, that can cause them to lose their sight, or they can develop a severe and life-threatening pneumonia from this particular bacteria infecting their young pulmonary system. And from that standpoint at all, it is a very common, but it can be very debilitating and disease with all of these other side effects from it. And that's why it's so important when you hear about vaccines that can actually prevent diseases. You hear about this crap all the time about heavy metal or mercury poisoning associated with older vaccines that we used to use mercury in the preservatives. And I'm just glad that we're still pursuing that technology that will actually help mankind to decrease infertility and to effect a cure for such a great population, a massive population of people, as long as it's cost effective. And it, again, is technology used with medical science at its greatest. And I think it's just brilliant. And I'm hopeful you will stay tuned for my next episode, because I will hopefully be able to bring you updates, not only on the chlamydia vaccine, but also an update in a positive manner about the decontamination of the water system in Newark, New Jersey. I love to read, obviously. Therefore, the TNFro is reading podcast. But for those hard to find titles, navigate to alibris.com. Alibris.com is chock full of hundreds of thousands of titles at a reasonable cost. So navigate to alibris.com/TNFro for those special deals. Plus, you can also navigate to dalesangelsinc.com and check out updated daily deals at your pleasure. Now back to the podcast. Well, as I become more and more, and I get paid more and more to work, I get to practice my craft in many different ways. I've published my own book, I update my blog, and I also publish this podcast. But what's going to keep it all moving smoothly is when I get other paid assignments. Well, I wrote this copy for a very useful cleaning device that I first became aware of when I stayed with a colleague of mine in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had no idea that the company or they're manufactured right down the road in Dalton, Georgia. But it's a great, a very perfect addition to any cleaning buff or OCD person. It's called Peachy Clean. And I am going to read you the copy that I wrote because I'm kind of proud of it. And I thought it was actually pretty good. I'm what you could call a self-described scrubaholic, which makes my relationship with the Peachy Clean scrubber a bit eccentric. But that makes sense because a scrubber does have a personality disorder. It looks like a sponge, but kicks butt as a heavy-duty scrubber. The lattice work of the silicone gives it the feel of a sponge and allows it to hold soap and water more readily. It also gives it the durability that keeps it from permanently damaging your ceramic stove tops or scrape that unique non-stick surface on expensive cookware. And when it's paired with the non-abrasive disinfectant, it makes quick work of the soap and scum in your bathroom. And you ever notice that stench emanating from that sponge, like the dust from Pigpen and the Peanuts cartoon? It's the perfume made up of the byproducts of mildew and pathologic bacteria that are having a love fest in the sponge. The bacterial brothel, yes, I stole that from a different writer, raging within those holes and crevices of traditional sponges that make them absorbent are the condos of salmonella, slime-causing, smelly, dangerous organisms. But the Peachy Clean scrubber with that silicone matrix allows it to scrape off burnt food and particles, rinse away pesticides, all without leaving a sticky film. It is one of the best on the market and economical, with benefits of durability with pots and pan scouring, but also salt enough not to scratch up your delicate surfaces or bruise your fruit and vegetables. Repeat cleaning will get you about 2 or 3 months of odor-free, heavy-duty usage. It's so reasonably priced that you'll easily be able to replace it. And literally, it's locally sourced, y'all. It's right down the road from Chattanooga in the state of Georgia. For those of us that require an A+ health department grade cleaning of our kitchens and bathrooms, this guaranteed odor-free scrubber paired with surface-specific cleaning solutions is the one to beat. So join other scrubberholics as we keep it clean and keep it fresh with Peachy Clean Scrubber. Now, back to the podcast. So, welcome back to the show. I watch a lot of TV, and I also read a lot of stuff. You guys know that if you follow me on my TNFro is reading blog and Instagram, and now my podcast. Well, during the day when I'm working from home, I spend my infrequent off time also viewing Dr. Phil. I find him amusing, but he's usually right on point with his science and his very helpful guidance. Today I learned about something called neuromodulation and its use in the treatment of medication and therapy resistant obsessive compulsive disorder. And of course, they had really cool MRI and imaging showing just how the circuitry on this really severe case of OCD, how it looked and how they actually modified the pathways to actually give these patients some relief. So I will be unpacking that and explaining that. And if you have insurance, there are some policies that actually will cover this therapy, but they only cover it for depression, or it's only indicated for depression at this time. And there have been some small studies that show the efficacy and treatment of other psychopathology. I'll also be discussing marijuana, psychosis, and hyperemesis. Then I go right along with talking about psychological pathology and how vaping can kill you. And it's not how regular cigarettes kill you. There is something in vaping. They don't know if it's burning or something within these little electronic jewel devices, but it's causing acute respiratory distress syndrome and permanent lung damage in a group of teenage patients. So there's going to be a lot of great discussion or a lot of great things that I think are going to come up next week. And I can't wait to talk about and read about more of them. So thanks for joining me in today's episode. And I look forward to talking to you guys again in just 7 days. Be safe and take care of you. Bye now. And don't forget, if you like what I am discussing, please don't hesitate to become a patron of TNFro is Reading, the podcast in general, or you could just send me a tip. I always tell people you can put 5 on it, which just simply means I'll take $5. But the way that the link works is you can actually tip any amount that you think that the show is worth. And you can always just, don't forget, I should say this. I would love to hear from you guys. Please drop me a line at TNFroisreading@gmail.com, or you can call me on and leave a 2-minute, that means a 2-minute voicemail message at, and of course, I don't know it because I've never dialed it, but you can leave me a very brief voicemail message at 423-463-0658. If you have a question or you just want to give me kudos, you can leave me a trolling message. I probably won't listen to it, and I'm definitely not going to respond to it on air. So no trolls. And again, you guys take care of you, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye now.